Namaste, everyone. After these very heartwarming words by Ms. Iyer, I'm going to jump straight onto pure science because the time is limited. But I want to say something. As I step into the Raj Yoga Center, that sense of peace and calm that prevails really settles by the mind. And now to jump into something as nasty as breast cancer is a tall order for me. I would rather speak about de-stress, spirituality and something else. But the task that I've been assigned today is not a very pleasant one, because over the next few minutes, I'll be running you through some very nasty statistics, some very nasty facts of life. But the problem is that we have this physical body. And no matter how wonderful our soul is, this is the cards that He, the Almighty, has given us. And we have to play the play of life as He destines. Now, as a doctor, my job is to just make it a little easier for you. And like I said, I warned you, there'll be some graphic pictures, there'll be some nasty statistics, but someone has to speak the truth. That is why I'm here. So without further ado, I think I'll leave the more higher consciousness stuff to the experts here. Thank you for having me, and thank you for listening to me. So I'll just quickly go over. Now, we all see, I'm running out of my pink saris this month, because this morning I was at the labor camps, a ladies' labor camp, talking about breast cancer. Then again today, then during the week, and it goes on till the end of the month. But has anyone ever wondered why October, which is the most important or self-styled important guru of the world, is United States, yeah? And anything that starts there with the so-called most important person in the world at this point in time, the President of America, the POTUS, of course. It was also way back in 1985 that the survivor was Betty Ford, the wife of the President, Gerald Ford, at that point. And she was a breast cancer survivor, and she joined hands with the American Cancer Society and the Imperial Chemical Industry to start mammogram as a screening for breast cancer. So it started in October, and then where did the pink ribbon come from? L'Oreal, one of the big cosmetic company, then joined hands and they decided to market. Marketing gurus, I bow down to them. All of us are wearing our pink ribbons, pink, but it initially started not as pink, but peach. Then I think pink became more the color of women, so therefore it became pink. And that's how the whole world is following the use of mammogram and the use of breast pink ribbons to give this importance to this particular month. Just a little snippet on the side. Now, that was way back in 1985, and we are standing now in 2025. And look at the numbers that I have put on the screen. Like I said, I warned you at the beginning. Some nasty statistics, some nasty numbers. So let's start with them. 316,000 women are expected to get breast cancer this year. About almost 60,000 new cases of ductal carcinomas are going to be diagnosed. What we also forget that breast cancer is a disease of men as well. And I'm so happy to see a smattering of few men in the group, because people forget that men have breasts too. So yes, don't think that you can escape this nasty disease. The good thing about breast cancer is that almost 2/3 of them are diagnosed at an early stage, and we can help the people who then come. So the mandate by the WHO for this year is that not only do we invest in research, and I'll touch some of the points later on, we adopt a healthier lifestyle. And I think Raj Yoga Center, like organizations, have a great role to play in that. And also the public health initiatives. I think all the community organizations like yourself have to come forward and spread the word. And I think Ms. Iyer's words were very heartwarming, because when she said, we are there to help, we are there to support, we are there to stand by you. And those words will ring true for many, many years to come. So, like I said, early detection, early detection, early detection is the mantra for breast cancer. And once it is detected early, 99% of the people can survive the disease. And I personally know, I mean, I've been a physician for 40 years. I come from a family of doctors, so grew up with grandparents. So cancer has been, almost like a life mantra for me. Unfortunately, I lost a lot of my grandfather, my uncles, brother-in-laws, so many people we've lost to cancer. So for us, for people like me, even though we are all doctors, we've all suffered. So I understand the pain and the torture that the family goes through, leave alone the patient. So yes, this is one good one where I know people, personally know people who have survived for 30, 40, 50 years, but it's come back, so at the age of 80. My association, even though I'm a virologist and ID physician, but my bread and butter is advanced immunology, and people forget that cancer is a failure of your immunity. So if you understand how the body fights viruses, we've all recovered from the pandemic, but you also must realize that cancer is a disease of failure of your immune system. So our paths as virologists cross very intimately with cancers. So my association has been, because I've been working for the government of UAE, unfortunately the UAE women are one of the highest risk groups in the world for cancer. So my association teaching UAE nationals from the very early years here has been very, very close. So we are one of the few people who have been involved in starting the Pink Caravan, the breast screening programs in the UAE national universities. And then even Dr. Huria Kazim was a colleague at Rashid Hospital who trained as an orthopedic surgeon. And then when she realized that the UAE national women were not comfortable going to male breast surgeons, because 30 plus years ago, there were only male breast cancer surgeons. So she went back and trained in the UK and came back as the first female breast surgeon of this country. So I just want to, some historical facts of this country. Now, one of the saddest thing about in this particular region is, if you see the red bars, breast cancer was always considered a disease of older women. So if you see the blue and the green bars of the Western world, you see the shift towards the right, more 50 plus women. But if you look at the red bars, which donate the cancer statistics in this country, it's the disease of younger women, which is very worrying. That's why we are now doing these screening programs in universities and high schools as well. So please don't go away with that. Now, the fact is that breast cancer used to be amongst the Indian population, most of us come from South Asia, it was considered as the number 2 cancer in the women. It was cancer cervix, which was uterine cancer, which was number 1. Breast cancer was number 2. Unfortunately, all over the world, breast cancer is number 1 diagnosis. 30% of all diagnoses worldwide is breast cancer now, which is a huge number. So yes, we have to flaunt our pink, but we also have to take a step further. And these are just US statistics. 1 in 8 women. So how many of us here, about 20, 30, 3 or 4 of us will end up with the disease, which is a very worrying statistic indeed. This was last year. You saw the number I put, the first slide was 50,000 more than last year. So each year, something we are doing is not right. And men, and I think I'll stop and take a breath at this point, because we forget that men have breasts too, and they have similar symptoms to how women have. The numbers are much less because, of course, the breast tissue is limited, therefore the chances of getting cancer are lower, but please do not, because, I've been in some of the breast cancer groups there where there have been male survivors also who have spoken about their experience. Okay, so don't forget. Next month is, by the way, the prostate cancer group, screening group. So November is called Movember for the mustaches that the men, because like we do breast cancer screening, next month we do prostate cancer screening. But don't forget, it's not just prostate, it is also the breast that's important for men. Like I said, 66% are diagnosed at an early stage, so we can do something about it because that makes it easier. Now this the next few slides are going to be a little disturbing, because studies have shown that women who are from underprivileged communities, and in the US it's always the colored and the Hispanic, the death rates in breast cancer are higher, 40 to 50% higher. Now you translate that, why does that happen? Because poor socioeconomic status means the access to healthcare, the access to screening methods, lack of health insurance, which also translates into this country, because the expats have lower access to good quality health insurance and medical care. So therefore, lack of access to preventive measures is directly related to the number of deaths due to cancer. Now, which is a very worrying statistics. So poverty, less education, and lack of health insurance translates. The studies that we've done in Dubai and Rashid hospitals have shown that the death rates, even in UAE, among the expat women are higher. Time to think, we are all expats here. So please, I mean, I'm a medical researcher, and so I speak with concrete statistics. So you can see the death rates amongst UAE expat women is higher. And I think that's why I'm very happy to speak at any forum where we can address expat women and say, ladies, please take a step back. Take care of yourself first. Okay, so, and of course I can go on quoting statistics because I speak with hard numbers, not just, okay. So, hope. Yes, of course there is hope. That's why people like us are spending our Sunday morning, afternoon, evening speaking about it, because there's 4 million survivors in US alone. I personally know, and we've had, survivors coming up at the consulate functions and various other women organization functions, talking about their experience and holding these support groups together. So yes, there is hope. Now, as a physician, it's interesting that the first lesson we learn in medicine is breast. The first chapter of year 1 is breast, because that was considered when we were students 40, 50 years ago as, something we just neglect. Chapter 1, do the structure, finish the anatomy, get the breasts out of the cadaver dissections that we would do, and then get on with the so-called real meat of medicine. But 40 years down the line, do you realize that is the number 1 cancer in the world? So I think we need to rewrite our medical textbooks and give it the due importance that it deserves. So what is essentially breast? It's just a mass of fat tissue which has all the ducts and the glands that produce milk. So the epithelial lining of the ducts is where the cancers happen. What we forget as women is also that there's an extension of the breast into the axilla, this fold of your... so when you start checking your breast, do not forget the axillary tail of Spence, this little extension into your front fold of your axilla, because that is where... Now, what about the causes of breast cancer? I mean, I get asked hundreds and thousands of questions on a daily basis. Sex, of course, I told you. Men have breast cancer too, but women have much more. What about the age? Like I said, it is now shifting towards more and more younger women. I've seen even 18, 19-year-old ladies with breast lumps that have turned out positive for cancer. So, family history. Now, this is important. If your sister, mother, sister, grandmother, maternal grandmother, her sister, anyone has history of breast cancer in the family through your maternal line, then your chances almost double. And that is a very important statistic. Personal health history, of course, if you're taking combined oral contraceptive pills, if you're taking hormone replacement therapy, if you're on any kind of radiation, if you have a reproductive history, and again, how I can see in the 40 years that I've been a physician, how our teaching has changed. When we were young, we were told that breast cancer is a disease of women who have no children or less children, and uterine cancer is seen in ladies who have more children. All these boundaries have been blurred. There are as many cancers in women who have multiple children as much as the ones who don't have children. So, not a nice word to say, but we used to, in the old days as students, we were told, oh, nuns have breast cancer, and sorry to use the word, prostitutes have cervical cancer. None of that holds true anymore. But just, sometimes you say these things so that people will remember. Defective genes, and I'll talk about the genes in a minute, because remember, again, I will reiterate, cancer is a failure of your immune system. Cancer is a failure of your immune surveillance. So if the genes that naturally clean up the defective cells are mutated or they've been changed, then they fail to do their job, and you allow the abnormal cells to grow rapidly and form a tumor. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay. So, of course, when we talk about risk factors, remember, we're talking about exercise, diet, alcohol intake, smoking, exposure to chemicals. All that is very well known. But I think I will fail in my duty if I don't say these things. A healthier lifestyle lowers your risk of any cancer, let alone breast cancer. It was initially said, oh, if you have 1 or 2 glasses of alcohol, units of alcohol per week, it's okay. It's not okay, because alcohol is a cellular toxin. Smoking has got thousands of chemicals which are cellular toxins. Anything that damages your cell will lead to cancer. So please do not take any of the things. And of course, the number of chemicals that we are putting into our food and preservatives and everything is added. That's why you can see every year the numbers are increasing, despite all the medical care we are pumping into the communities. So some things we cannot change. We cannot change our age, race, family history, personal health history. If you have periods early, in our generation, the age of menarche used to be, say, 13, 14. But now it's 8 or 9. Girls are starting their menarche as early as 9 years of age average. Menopause used to be much earlier, 40, 45. Now, I think with the healthier lifestyles that we are leading, menopause age is also now 50, 50 plus. So your time of exposure as women to the hormones is much longer. And I think that is also a very big contributory fact to developing cancers, all female cancers. Okay, now I've spoken about all this. Just a word about the genes, because I think everybody has heard about BRCA1 and BRCA1 and BRCA2. BRCA is actually essentially just breast cancer, BRCA1 and 2. Now this became very popular or famous because we have all heard of Angelina Jolie. She had this genetic test, and because she tested positive, she went and removed both her breasts. And it became, like 10, 15 years ago, became what we called in medicine as the Angelina Jolie effect. Many women, you know how we follow celebrities? Many women came forward, got their test done, they were positive, because if you're positive for these mutations, your risk of getting cancer increases substantially. Ever since then, there's a whole long list of genes that have been identified which increase your risk of breast cancer. And essentially, these are all DNA repair genes whose job is to remove the cells that are abnormal. If they are mutated, they cannot do their job, and the abnormal cells multiply. Now just think, every second as we speak, our white blood cells, our natural killer cells, are walking around our body looking for these abnormal genes and killing those cells. Anything that lowers your immunity, whether it is alcohol, saturated fats, whether it is smoking, whether it's hormones, anything that stops the function of these cells will lead to cancer. And I think that is where meditation and spirituality comes into improving your immunity. So I'm not an expert on that, but I know how lowering your stress levels also improves your immune surveillance function. Okay, so We've spoken about the environment factors, but still the situation is such that in 2/3 of cases we do not find any risk factors, and yet the numbers are there. So what do we do? I want to spend a minute on these myths about cancer. Now, there's so many myths about cancer. You know, women say, oh, if you wear underwired bra, or if you put your phone in your next to your breast, or if you do mammograms, or if you do drink too much coffee, or if you're using plastics and other chemicals. At the moment, there are no studies to show that in people doing these acts have higher risk of breast cancer. I don't know what's going to happen in 10, 20 years. Because the amount of chemicals and the radiations that we are exposed to, somebody will come up with a study and say it increases your risk. So we have to take that with a pinch of salt. Okay. So myths about cancer, of course, having a breast cancer is not the end of your life. And that's where we will have a life beyond the diagnosis of cancer. So please don't hesitate about coming forward with your things. So what do? The best thing that has been shown for breast cancer is self-examination. And we recommend every woman who's menstruating or postmenopausal to make sure that every month you stand in front of the mirror and do a self-breast examination. Now, when I speak with young girls who are shy about touching their body parts because that is the way we've been brought up, but to married women, to women who are sexually active, the recommendation is always to stand in front of the mirror and examine every quarter of your breast. The best time to do it is the day you finish your period, because the breasts are at their softest and kindest at that point. So you wouldn't mind touching your breasts with 3 fingers and going through every quarter. Do not forget to examine the axillary tail of Spence and against your axilla, because the lymph nodes that drain the breast are found inside your axilla. So please press against the bone and feel for any lumps. Very important. The men do the same, by the way. The other way to... So what alarms you to seek medical help? Any change in the breast, the size, the shape, anything in the nipple, any changes in the skin, any hard areas, any small lumps, any abnormal discharge, anything that is abnormal, that wasn't there. Change in the size of breast, change in the color of the breast. That's why I say always stand in front of the mirror and look at it, because you can't look down and see what's going on in the lower quadrants of the breast. Okay, so if you find a lump, majority of the lumps turn out to be benign. But who are you to decide? Leave that to us. So that's why we recommend mammograms and ultrasounds to see if they are normal fibroadenotic cysts or are they just something that we need to worry about. So just some pictures to show you. Feel your boobies, because remember I also tell the young ones, you go quadrant by quadrant. Either you stand in front of the mirror or you can lie down and do it, because then you're feeling the lumps, feeling for the lumps against your bones, which is the best way to find the small lumps. So you found a lump. What do you do next? So the next thing that we do is a mammogram, yeah? And mammogram is one of the most unpleasant, and I'm warning you, because even though it's an unpleasant thing, it's necessary. So what we do is, your breast is squeezed between 2 tables. Literally, many of you are nodding your heads, I can see. Those of us who have gone through it, we know how painful it is. You try and put it off for as long as you can, but please don't. Because finding a good, a lump early on mammogram will change your life. So yes, can you see the 2, so you're made to put your breast on the table, and then the X-ray tube comes and squeezes your breast, and then an X-ray picture is taken. So not a pleasant thing, but has to be done. You cannot run away from it. Okay, so any lumps, any symptoms, a mammogram is and I think this is a very expressive picture of how the poor fat tissue is nicely squeezed between the 2 And they really squeeze it. It's not a pleasant thing. So, of course, the next few slides are a lot of medical details. I'll skip them, but you can see by the arrangement of the blood vessels, calcifications, we can make out whether a lump can be cancerous or not. So yeah, I will skip all this because that's a lot of medical details. So what do we do next? Once we find a lump that's suspicious, then we either take a needle and take out a few cells and send it to people like us to see whether it has got some abnormalities, or if it's a small lump, many surgeons just like to go in and take out the whole lump, and then it is diagnosed histopathologically. Now, so what, unfortunately, if it turns out to be malignant, then the treatment starts. And I think most people know that we do a proper staging. So you can see on the slide the lymph nodes, so you can see the red dot, stage 1, 2, 3. Then we say whether it is low grade, moderate grade, poorly differentiated, because your chances of survival depend on the staging and the grading. Now, of course, the stage 1 is almost like 1 centimeter and below, but it spreads very fast. And where does it spread to? I will not go into the details. The staging and grading, it's more for the medical students. But where does it spread to? So bones, brain, lungs, and your, what did I miss? Liver, yeah, because you can see. And once it is spread, even if it's a small tumor, it's less than 1 centimeter, but it's spread to any part of your body, it is straight away stage 4. So that makes the prognosis or your chances of survival relatively less. But why should we let it go to that stage? Why are we here to detect it before you have a 1 centimeter lump? Because that's stage 0 and stage 1. So, of course, we can then see how from the ducts, the tubes that I spoke about, the cancer starts growing inside those tubes. And there's a condition called ductal carcinoma in situ, but that also stays inside the tubes, but sometimes it can spread just along the tubes. I mean, less malignant, but equally dangerous. Just one word about the receptor staging, because remember I told you the hormone exposure determines your risk of getting cancers. So when we check the breast tissue, we check for the receptors for estrogen, progesterone, and the human epidermal growth factor, because based on that, the treatment is given. So we'll say, I'm just sharing these figures because if you have family members or unfortunately anyone that you know closely, then at least you can be sympathetic and say, don't worry, there is treatment for all of this. Okay, so they can be triple positive. This is how we grade. We say HER2 positive, ER negative, PR negative, and that's how it goes. One of the rare cancers, or very common, is when your breast becomes, the skin becomes like the skin of orange. And Kavita ji is wearing an orange sari. So in all this pink, there's one rare, but a very dangerous one. Not that you are dangerous, you're such a sweetheart. But this is, the minute you have what is called peau d'orange, the skin of orange, that is a stage 3B or a stage 4 cancer. That's why I was emphasizing why it's important to examine in front of the mirror to see if there are any changes to your skin texture. So, of course, we all know the treatment, the surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, and then targeted immunotherapy. You must have all read about the cancer vaccines that are coming in. Essentially, what are we doing? We are taking part of the breast tissue and immunizing your own white blood cells to kill that. Now, with good meditation and low-stress lifestyle, you can do it yourself. Okay. So, of course, you've seen all kinds of surgery that is done, remove the lump, remove the breast, remove all the tissues. Sometimes when it even spreads to the muscles lying under the breast tissue, even those are removed. So that is called radical mastectomy. And those are very disfiguring conditions, very traumatic for the women who's gone through these, but it's not easy, not easy. That's why the support groups are so essential. And I think Ms. Iyer's words were so true. Just stand and support, help them. Okay, so chemotherapy, again, we all know chemotherapy. What is the side effect of chemotherapy? One of the first things you lose is hair. Now, a woman's vanity is all about her appearance, isn't it? We are so proud of our hair, whatever color. Thankfully, Ms. Iyer is here, we have, and Kusumji is here, so we're very proud of our hair color. And we flaunt it. But remember, we have hair. The ones who lose it after chemotherapy, that becomes a very painful experience. So, breast reconstruction, and at one of these breast cancer lectures, this ladies came forward, and I really admired these support groups. Can you see they say, Dr. Nishi, you know how to knit? Of course we knit. We made the Guinness Book of World Record with Kusumji also contributing to it. And see, we can use our knitting skills to make these, so many of you can feel it later, I'll pass it around. Just reconstruction, because some of the poorer friends cannot afford prosthetic surgery or breast reconstructive surgery. They've sold their homes, their lands, whatever to pay for the treatment. Where is the money left for making new breasts? These are expensive things. But for vanity's sake, we help them. There are groups that will make reconstructive boobies for you. So radiation, of course, is also very disfiguring. Hormone treatments, I told you, we do the hormone receptor studies, because then the hormone treatment, many of the survivors are on lifelong hormone therapy to make sure that the breast cancer doesn't come back. Targeted therapy, I told you about the special cancer vaccines that we are using. Still, in women, it is the top number 1 cancer, but the second cause of death. Any guesses which is the first cause of death? Lungs. Women think that they are very smart and they want to be equal to men by smoking as much. And unfortunately, in the Middle East and now spreading, it's become very fashionable to smoke the shisha. It's not. It is the biggest killer. So, I mean, even though... So remember, 1 in 8 women. Remember, in India, I told you it used to be cervical cancer that used to top the list, but now it is breast cancer, which is very sad. This is not the price we want to pay for our prosperity and our development. Of course, from what I have said, you know what are the ways to reduce breast cancer. A good healthy weight, exercise, limit your alcohol. Breastfeeding is protective. And this morning in the labor camp, one of the ladies from Uganda asked me, but can you guess breast cancer when you're breastfeeding? Yes. And that is one of the most dangerous cancers which breastfeeding mothers get. It is called mastitis carcinomatosa. And then the next question was, will it be transmitted to this child? No, because it is not infectious. But if you carry the gene that increased your risk, then your child will be at higher risk later on in life. But it is not transmitted by breastfeeding. So the breastfeeding is only stopped during that time when you're breastfeeding, because chemotherapy drugs are very toxic. That we can't give to the children. Okay. So since I was asked this morning, I thought I'll share that. Okay, so we are here to hold breast cancer awareness, and these are some of the celebrities that have come forward with their disease status. I can see who else is there. There's Manisha Koirala, and interestingly, the group in the morning were majority Nepalis. So I think we've covered almost every nationality here. So we have Emiratis, we have Lisa Ray, we have Angelina Jolie. Many have resumed their normal lives after early diagnosis and treatment. We are here to help. I was so happy to be part of the Hair for Hope initiative by Ms. Premi Matthew, who herself is a cancer survivor. And you know, we want the women who have survived breast cancer to live with dignity. So again, like breast reconstruction is expensive, hair wigs are very important, are expensive as well. I did not know that they cost anything between 2,500 to 5,000 dirhams. Little children come forward and donate their ponytails to make free wigs. And this is why we are out in the community talking about early detection, talking about support from charities like Breast Friends and yourself, and support groups to help you then live a life with dignity. That's what we are all about as women together. Thank you. Like I said, there is no study to say microwaves cause cancer, because we cannot say anything till we have concrete numbers. Having said that, microwaving food kills all the essential enzymes. So if you've put vegetables in microwave, you've killed half the living enzymes, which is what make vegetables healthy. So if you extend it further, then eating raw food as raw food is always better rather than cooking it by any modality. Because the minute you expose living enzymes to heat, that kills it. So that's why this whole trend of microgreens has started. That you even increase, so-called your dry fruit in water. Activate the enzymes, activate the germination process. So all that helps. But like I said, there is no study to prove that. So yes. As a doctor, I have to put that disclaimer as well. Otherwise, you'll go and quote me and I'll be in trouble with my medical community. So I think we need more people like yourself to lead that movement and say, okay, all the hair that is being donated by people that we have motivated together, we then follow it to the end to make sure that the genuinely needy get it. No, but the last collection that we did together, and I think you were present there, this was given to Shekhar Jawahar's foundation. But what happens is that, as expats, you don't get the priority, so to say. So, they were very enthusiastic, yeah. We were really touched by their enthusiasm. So I think, yeah, and I think that's where public health and charity groups like yourself can be the link between connecting the truly needy with the people who are doing it.
Let's take this point.
Yes, sure, for sure. We'll follow it up.
Find them like really deep, or they just appear on the surface of the breast?
Good question. You see, I had limited time. The question is, how deep are these lumps? They can be very deep. So even if you do not have a lump, an annual mammogram or once in 2-3 years, I mean, not everybody goes every year, it's a painful process, but at least once in 2-3 years, make it a part of your normal preventive checkup so that the deeper lumps are picked up, because you cannot physically feel them. So I told you step by step, self-breast examination, mammograms are both hand in hand. You don't go for mammogram only if you have a lump. I'm glad you asked that, yes.
So, ma'am, do we have any other blood tests or something?
No. Unlike, okay, let me clarify that. Prostate cancer and ovarian cancer, we have blood test. That's why in the preventive checkups of women, we do ovarian cancer screening, the CA-125, and for prostate we do the PSA. So they are blood tests. In fact, the blood test for ovarian cancer was done by one of my very close colleagues from college. She got the biggest grant in the United Kingdom of 20 million pounds to do the ovarian cancer screening. Now she's a professor at University College London, so we trained together at that point. So yes, that is for ovarian cancer and prostate cancer, but we don't have a blood test for breast cancer. Even the genetic screening is done with tissue. So they take a oral swab, and then the genes are tested for that, and then we find the mutated genes, and therefore it's not a blood test, it's a cellular test. Oh, the vaccine that she's talking about is HPV. I think the next time I come, I'll speak about HPV vaccination, because that is the most effective prevention for cervical cancer. And that is why I said I'm a virologist. Human papilloma virus is a virus that causes cancer, like so many other viruses. So as part of my specialty, that it's a crossover for me. In fact, interestingly, you said HPV. You know, my own daughters, so my husband's a gynecologist, I'm a virologist. My daughters were the first in this country in 2007 to get the first dose of HPV vaccine. When the vaccine had just been introduced, we got the samples. I've been working with the virus for many years. I was convinced. So my poor daughters say, just because we are our parents are so and so, we get all the jabs. I said, yeah, if I don't use my knowledge for my family, then how can I stand in front of you and defend it, isn't it? The vaccine is now recommended from the age of 9 to 45. I need another hour to speak about that. But the vaccine recommendation is 9 to 45. And we can go into why and how the next time I come around.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was a very informative session, and I'm very thankful to Raja Yoga Center and Indian Folk Art Corridor to host this event and to see that all these women here need this awareness. They have so many questions about it, and I thank Dr. Nishi to speak on this session and speak about this topic and create awareness among all of us.